640,000 in population, encompass 21 townships, 9 cities, and 5 villages. We have 43 school districts, and so that's quite a number of school districts. It's about 20 traditional school districts and 23 charter school districts. And so for the most part in our area, each charter school is its own district, unless they have multiple schools. We have about 107,000 students. Our partner network is about 150 individuals with 70 cross-sector organizations. It's kind of the greater Grand Rapids area that we're talking about, but it is an area that includes both, very rural areas, suburban and urban. So it's a pretty diverse geography.
So this is Neil. I have the privilege of being co-chair for 2.5 years now, I guess, of the Data and Capacity Work Group. My other co-chair right now is Julie Klausing from the Great Lakes Health Connect. You can see their logo there. They're experts at essentially collating data from multiple competing health systems and providing value back to all the systems from that data collection. So they have expertise in a relevant parallel area, and Julie's participation has been very helpful. You see the Johnson Center's logo there. One of our roles as a group has been just to act as a sounding board for ideas and judgment calls that the dashboard design team needs to make, and also just framing guidelines for the domain work groups to choose success measures and indicators to use on the dashboard, and I don't know, kind of being a passel of nitpickers and a pain in the neck as well. I just want to comment on a couple of the logos here of interest. At upper right, you see the Kent Intermediate School District that covers the 20-odd school districts that Mark mentioned. They're in an interesting position in that they don't have a lot of power to mandate certain things from their member school districts, but they are a great sort of single-stop shop for collating educational data and coordinating communications with the school districts. Mark Maynard from that group is a data-savvy gentleman who participates in the work group regularly. Right below that, the Seidman College of Business is at Grand Valley State University, along with the Johnson Center. Paul Isley is a professor of economics and a dean at the College of Business, who's widely sought after in the region for commentary on economic trends and provides good insight on how to get cost-effective measurement on difficult concepts. And we have the Grand Rapids Public Schools represented, and the community college, the Department of Education. Erica Bolig is a well-informed official who makes it over from Lansing occasionally. And one last thing to mention, the right place on the left is our local public-private economic development partnership for West Michigan. David Riley has recently launched a dashboard for Regional Prosperity Initiative at wmdashboard.org. So those of you who are data visualization geeks, if you can't get enough after today's demo, go over to wmdashboard.org and have a look at Dave's work.
Great, thanks, Neil. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the K-Connect dashboard. We identified, so just, we'll show you the dashboard in a second, but I wanted to go over a couple of things first. We really built out or thought about what our target audiences are for this dashboard. And first and foremost, we made the target audience the K-Connect work groups. And we really felt like the work groups needed the data. They needed data to be able to make decisions. And we wanted this to be an area where they could come while they're having conversations and find out the data that they needed to continue those conversations. And so first and foremost, our dashboard is really is for the K-Connect work groups. And you'll see some of the tools that we've built in there for them. But on the other side of it, it also has a target audience of our network organizations that they're able to come to the dashboard, use data when they're either making decisions or applying for a grant, and that they didn't need to spend all this money on their own infrastructure or their own data system. The third one is, of course, the community, right? That the community would really know where K-Connect stands, where Kent County stands when it comes to kind of these important measurements along the continuum of prenatal to career. We identified, and if you haven't done this with your dashboard, or you're planning on dashboarding, you know, I think it's just good advice. I think, you know, we sort of went back and did some of this. And if you start off with who your audience is and what your design principles are, and your design principles can always grow, you know, it makes it easier to move forward and to build something. And so we identified a few design principles. We wanted it to be intuitive to use, that, you know, from the most basic user to the most advanced user would understand how to use it pretty intuitively. And as it gets more complex, I mean, we always have to keep that in mind and in thought, and we're building, you know, some guides and some different things to help people along. We wanted it to help communicate data in a consistent way throughout the community. So where possible, we thought there was an opportunity that we could standardize some data, the way it looked, the way it was visualized, and help people so that they would, when they saw a chart or a graph, you know, although it may have different data in it, they understood how to read it, you know, very quickly. We needed, obviously, to disaggregate by race and ethnicity and economic status, and then we wanted it to drive two communities within the county. So, as I mentioned before, both the disaggregation of race and ethnicity and the geographies within the county. As a whole, we do pretty well as a county when you dive down into the data, disaggregate by race and ethnicity, and then along with some geographies are not doing as well, and those need to be highlighted, and work needs to be we need to work towards improving those gaps. So now I just want to sort of take you to the dashboard. Second, let me just switch over. Let me just switch over to the dashboard. Why is that? Let's see. There we go. I had to find out how to get it from my other screen. You can get there by, you know, the website is gis.cridata.org/KConnect. And you start off on what we call our splash page or our landing page. And this has all what we call our success measures. I think some of the Strive partners call those, I think, critical indicators. We call them success measures. It's how we measure success, basically. We have 10 success measures along the prenatal to career pipeline. We have, and I'm going to start with actually prenatal to third grade. And so some of these might look pretty familiar to what your community is looking at. First of all, we have, you know, kindergarten readiness, that all children are ready for kindergarten. Third grade reading, and we call that English language arts here in Michigan, that they're all proficient in third grade reading, that they go on to be proficient in 7th grade science, 8th grade math, graduate from high school, obtain some type of post-secondary degree, associates or higher. And then we actually have this career success measure of the employment rate, which we think, and I'll get to this a little bit later, may be changing for us. We have 3 success measures in home and family stability at the beginning of this, which is we have a couple of family income thresholds based on percentages of poverty. And then we have a basic needs index. Of course, a natural question when looking at the splash page is the 2 question marks on them. And both of those are question marks for very different reasons. If your community is like ours, we don't, in relation to kindergarten readiness, we don't have a common measurement for kindergarten readiness, although most schools in our district do have some type of measurement for kindergarten readiness. There has not been a way to sort of weight them or look at them as a whole. And our prenatal to third grade work group is currently working on, how do we measure kindergarten readiness, or how do we move forward with some type of common kindergarten readiness measurement. And that's something that they're actively working on to help fix for the county. The other one is the Basic Needs Index. And this is through a great partnership with our Essential Needs Task Force. And the Essential Needs Task Force in Kent County is another kind of collective impact type organization that is convening around basic needs delivery. And they have done a lot of work over the last year or so with their work groups to identify what their success measures are. And they have a number of work groups in kind of each of the areas of basic needs, from jobs and food and transportation, energy, and I'm missing one.
Workforce
development. And they have identified success measures for each one of those, and we're kind of rolling those up into an index. And so when those are available, we'll populate our success measure of the Basic Needs Index, which is, the ENTF. The other thing I would like to point out is sort of the design of the wheel, kind of at the top of, or the middle top of the splash page. There was serious thought and discussion about this between our data and capacity work group and CRI graphic design team in multiple versions. And we finally got to a place where we felt really comfortable, where, home and family stability, which is that icon of the house, is really at the center of it, that there needs to be home and family stability, and that each piece of the kind of the cog or the puzzle, from prenatal to third grade, 4th through 12th, and high school to career, is really helping to turn that wheel, and that everything working together can help improve educational and life outcomes in Kent County. Each one of these, so this is just kind of the high level look at the data for the county. You have some basic information, what it is, baseline, whenever we started measuring this to the current year, if it's going up or down, some basic stuff. Each one of the measurements you can go into and find a whole bunch more information. And this is really where we've built a tool on our dashboard to be able to explore what is happening within our county, where work groups can go, where the community can go, to understand what is happening within our community. And each one of the sort of the tools that we've developed over time has come out of needs from the work group, or situations that we've needed to be able to access certain data. So I'm just going to look into, as an example, you can go into any one that you want, but I'm going to go into third grade reading. And pretty much our data tool is set up, whatever the measurement is, it's going to look fairly similar. You're going to have your trend graph in the upper left. You're going to have some sort of breakdown. Let me get back. Sorry. You're going to have a disaggregation by race and ethnicity, along with some other options, gender, economic status, things of that nature in the bottom left. You're going to have a map of the county. This is of our school districts in the county. And then you're also going to have access to a chart behind the map that gives you a whole bunch more information. And so here we're looking at third grade reading. We've built sorry, we built, this shows you kind of the different disaggregation that you can do by race, ethnicity, economic status. We've built on, you know, different proficiency levels, if you're interested in looking for that. We have all of the dashboard it's fairly interactive, meaning if you're whatever you're interested in looking at, you can kind of select. So if you're looking at something like Grand Rapids Public, or you want to look at you know, Forest Hills, or you want to look at a different school district, all your data is going to sort of change specific to that. We have information down to sort of the building level if you're interested in a specific building, if you're interested in, you know, charter schools, whatnot. One of the things that we noticed early on when we were working is that talking about kind of percentage rates of proficiency wasn't the only thing that we wanted to talk about. We noticed that the number of students that were not proficient was really important, and so we noticed that there were large school districts that had, you know, pretty high proficiency rates, but because they're large school districts, they also had a high number of students who were not proficient, and so we wanted to be able to highlight that. So we have kind of the ability to switch back over to between count and proficiency level, and be able to sort you know, the number of proficient, the number of not proficient, and the totals within the school districts. And, you know, getting back to my previous comment, the reason that we built all this functionality is really so that the data conversation in the work groups doesn't have to stop when someone kind of raises their hand and say, what about this, what about that? We want our data to be able to answer those questions, not take a month to have to come back with something else, but to be able to do it right. A couple of the other features that we've built on is really kind of this idea of the ability to kind of standardize communication of data and to help people communicate data. And so one of the things you'll notice is, let me just clear the filters a second. One of the things that you'll notice is this export feature, kind of in the upper right-hand side. We built on, and through some great design at the Community Research Institute, you can take anything that you're looking at, any one of these charts, whatever you selected. So if you're interested in this demographic chart on the bottom left-hand side, you can just export that. You're going to have a copy of that chart. You can easily just copy it, paste it right into a grant proposal, right? And it's as easy as that. And so, you know, this helps to kind of standardize how people are talking about data. They have the ability to visualize it. It is, you know, the same. They're going to see the same type of chart whenever, you know, whatever the data source. So they get fairly used to it. The other one, and like I said, you can do that with the trend chart, the map, the geography list. The other really cool one that CRI came up with is this share link feature. And so if I'm really interested in, you know, I'm looking into, let's say, Lowell schools, and I am interested, let's do Wyoming, because, and I'm interested in the Latino students in Lowell or in Wyoming public schools. And I'm looking at this and I said, oh, you know, this is really interesting to me. Third grade reading scores have gone down, you know, almost 2 percentage points over the last year. And I want to send this to someone to communicate with them. I can just share that link, copy it. It's going to produce a unique link to that data source. I can send it to them. I can comment whatever I want to say. It's going to come up. whoever you send it to, they can pop it up and they can be looking at the exact same thing that you are looking at. And so, again, all about ease of communication of data. You can post that link to Facebook. You could post that link to, we use Trello as sort of a project management light software, as well as kind of archives for work groups, and get some discussion around that. So for the most part, we are using sort of public source data on this that follows suppression rules. You'll see that throughout our website, or throughout our dashboard rather. And we're starting to get to a point where we have tools kind of beyond what our data can do, and we're hopeful for the future when we have some more individual level data. One other feature that I just want to take you through that I think I really like and will be really helpful in the future as well is we have this multiple geography tool, excuse me, where you can actually select whatever districts that you're interested in, or geographies if you're using another measurement. So I'm going to select, I don't know, Forest Hills, Grand Rapids Public, let's grab one more, Rockford Public Schools. And you can actually have the dashboard sort of aggregate those together for you. We have a little warning about suppression there. But this is going to show you kind of in aggregate what those 3 districts look like. You'll notice these sort of barred, diagonal lines, and that is because we are aggregating suppressed data that was an aggregate, and so we have some uncertainty exactly where that lies. And for where we have a small Asian population, that difference, that range of what the proficiency rate could be, is quite high. So there's a little bit of uncertainty of where that exact number lies. And hopefully that's an issue that will be taken care of as we get better data in the future. So that is the other thing that I would mention is that we have our work groups are actively working, excuse me, actively working to identify what we call indicators. And these are really what we see as the levers to our success measure. And this is really kind of some of the big work for K-Connect and the work groups, is what will actually move these success measures. And so you'll see space for these below our success measure on this page. So here we actually have 2 that we're sort of testing out. One is attendance that is, the number of students missing 10% of days or more. And we have sort of 2 to 3 spots for indicators for each success measure. Again, when you go into that, you'll be able to see pretty similar, visualization to the data. But for all of our work groups, for all of our 10 measures, we're identifying about 3 indicators per. Great. Yep. So let me just move back to the PowerPoint a second. Bear with me. And I wanted to, there may be, we thought people might out there that, the more of the tech people out there might be interested in kind of what's under the hood for the K-Connect dashboard. And I thought I'd pitch it over to the Johnson Center and Jody Peterson to kind of talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So as I said earlier, the Community Research Institute is kind of the data partner for K-Connect. Our staff are made up of both research professionals and technology professionals. That includes a GIS manager, web developers, database administrators, and a graphic designer. And then we also have research staff on the team who help interpret some of the findings and make sure that we're using data in appropriate ways that make sense for the dashboard. So kind of background of what's going on with the dashboard. On the server side, we use CentOS, which is a Linux-based operating system. We use Apache Tomcat for our web server. And then the page itself is coded in Java. So we have Java server pages and Java as the development language. The web client has HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It has jQuery and Bootstrap, which also help it to be mobile responsive. So you can see the dashboard if you're on a phone or a tablet. We use Leaflet as our mapping platform. We had used Weave previously and have moved away from that. And then D3 data visualization package, which ties in with the Java that we do. Backend data management, we use Oracle as our database. So this is a relational database management system. So not only do we build the front end part of the dashboard, but we host all of the data and do any kind of data matching or aggregation that needs to happen in order to populate it into the dashboard. We use county and intermediate school district geographies. So we're lucky in Kent County that a lot of those things are publicly available to us. We have indicators that are particular to the project grouped by geographies. So that means that for some of the indicators, they are related to school districts or ISDs, where other indicators can be related to townships. Some of them we have at the city level. So the actual geographies that show up in the map are related to the indicator, and we can't do too much switching between. So if we get school district data, we can't show that by township, for example. We also built a code system to relate pairs of indicators. As Mark showed, you can switch between an indicator and an inverse. So like the percent of kids who are chronically absent or the percent of kids who are not chronically absent. So we have it set up as a way to flip between those indicators fairly quickly, and that's all done in the back-end database side of things.
Great. Thanks, Jody.
Sure.
So the other thing I wanted to give you is some of the current challenges for K-Connect related to the dashboard. Right now, we do not have, and we're trying to explore some type of ability to display data privately on the dashboard, and kind of what are the best options. Right now, we basically have the ability to upload it and it's public, and sometimes we're playing around with indicators trying to decide them, or we don't necessarily want them public, and so we're kind of working with CRI to come up with some good solutions on how we do that within our existing dashboard framework. As we talked about a little bit, we have some, and I'm sure a lot of you have this as well, some issues around suppressed data and how granular our data is and what it can be used for. And I put this down in challenge number 3, but it also shows some renewed ownership, some ownership of the work groups and the success measures themselves. But I would say one of the issues is network consensus on measures, not so much indicators, but definitely measures, where, we still want to talk about, are these, kind of the right measures that we're using? And one of the benefits of that is that, for instance, our 4th through 12th grade work group, which has been very active, is now looking at, what are some alternative success measures that we could identify that are more revolutionary than the ones that we have that the community selected 3 to 4 years ago. And so there's, they're really trying to think creatively and innovatively. So the 4th one is changing measurement, and you may deal with this as well, but for instance, the state of Michigan recently moved away from a 30-year-old kind of standardized test called the MEEP to a different test called MSTEP. This started, I think, in 2015. So we only have the ability right now to go back a couple of years and trend. And it looks like we're going to have some more changing measurement moving forward. I just want to kick it over to Neil, kind of for the future of K-Connect data.
Sure. So I am assured, excuse me, right now we're about halfway to filling the dashboard with the 3 indicators apiece for each of the 10 success measures. So that is an ongoing challenge. Then the usual process that Johnson Center and CRI specialize in, and making agreements with local data holders to be able to use their data on the dashboard. There's quite a bit of work to do there. Number 3 is an interesting challenge that Mark has been a champion of, that I think we can all endorse, which is right now we're looking at all of this data through an institutional lens that sees student geography as a function of the location of the school building. But in fact, a large number of our students don't live near the school building they're being represented around. And if we can get some form of individual level data, even just for location, even if it has to be aggregated back, it can be aggregated more accurately than it currently is by using residents. And then the fourth idea is one that our work group, data and capacity work group, has been working on with support from CRI and K-Connect, just thinking about the incredible gains we could make if we could do some standardization and collaboration, not just within K-Connect, but across the nonprofit, philanthropic, and civic community to boost our capacity to share data through standardizing data feeds, training, building competencies, and generally doing a lot of the things. I like to point to the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C.org, as an example of an organization that provides a lot of value to its members by working on talent development and setting standards and making it easier for tools like the dashboard to scale up and adapt into new circumstances by pooling expertise and code bases and strategies and things like that. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, let us know in the questions.
Great, thank you, Neil. And that's kind of it. So wanted to open it up to you guys. Any questions out there, let us know. And as always, you can reach us on the web at k-connect.org. And I think Michael is planning on sending out the slides to you guys. So our emails are in that. If you have individual questions you want to talk at a later point, we welcome that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Mark, there are just a few questions in the chat box, and I can go ahead and read them. One of which is from Joe Adams, who just said, going back to that slide that was under the hood, how many staff does that require that is under the hood?
So the CRI has 20 staff, but we work on about 40 projects at any given time. So on the team that works on K-Connect, we have one web developer, one database administrator. Neither of those people are full-time on this project. And then a research manager and 2 research coordinators, again, not full-time on this project, and the GIS manager and graphic designer. So I couldn't give you an idea off the top of my head as far as number of hours we put into this, but it pulls in a lot of people for part of their job. We don't have staff that are dedicated full-time to this.
Okay, we have another one that says, I saw the skill sets and wondered about the meshing of disciplines across the project. We struggled with those estimates. Wonder if Oracle is a feasible option with the data warehouse. We're pushing the envelope by not having one. Not having one.
Talk about the skill set, range of skill sets you were talking.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, then you're talking about the range of skill sets that we're talking about at CRI. I do think CRI is kind of uniquely positioned to do work like this. It is fairly rare from what we've seen to have other organizations that have a mix of these skill sets. And I will be totally honest that there have been historical challenges in getting those skill sets to mesh. We have gone through a couple of different staffing models to make sure that those mesh well. But I think project-based work that pull together the skills of researchers with our technology staff seem to not cause major problems in figuring out how to mesh those skill sets.
Awesome.
If there's another question about Oracle as a data warehouse, I can speak more to that too.
Cool. Ruth Juarez said, are there any plans to create dashboards for public consumption? I refer to parents and families when I say public. As an aside, I found this super interesting and beautiful.
Well, thank you to CRI for making it beautiful. They've done a great job with it. So it has not necessarily been marketed. That's like a really good question. It has not necessarily been marketed towards parents and kind of the user end of systems. what I will say is that we have had, we actually had, this is a great story. There was, our project manager in CRI was looking for a school district and a house, and she kind of wanted to know and where she was, where she might want to go, and she with all the data at her disposal, she sort of went to the K-Connect website to kind of figure it out. So there is sort of this community user component. It at this point has not been marketed, towards that, but that is part of our kind of future communication opportunity, I think. Right now, we've spent the last 3 years kind of working with our network, getting some of this standardized, and I think there's some other audiences that we may want to think about for the dashboard.
Well, and I can give my colleagues here a heads up that I'm aware of a major parent-facing online architecture under development, and one of the ideas of the Community Data Trust is to try to take opportunities like that, and instead of just talking about how can we embed content and functionality from the K-Connect dashboard into this new parent-facing environment, or just link it, taking that environment and context and say, how can we learn something about standard setting and modularization and data feeds so that not only does it work for that consumer, that parent environment, but we learn something that we can syndicate for other people to pick up the K-Connect resources and embed them in their environments the same way, by creating data feeds, APIs, and things like that. But that's expensive in the sense that we can't ask any given project necessarily all by itself to bear the cost of becoming, a flexible, mashable tool without budgeting for that. So part of the vision of the Community Data Trust is to create the culture where funders and project managers expect to pay the cost to collaborate on a higher level.
It's a great segue into just another question we have in the Q&A, which is what is or was your budget for developing, and what does the ongoing operation of the dashboard look like? I'm assuming budget-wise, and that's from Paul at Launch Flag staff.
So we have a primary contract with Community Research Institute that is not just the data dashboard, but is all kind of our data needs through working through indicators, a lot of other work than just, I would say, the data dashboard. And that contract is for $100,000 per year. And we've been, obviously been blessed with some money to be able to do that. And so, not everyone sort of has the opportunity to do that, or the resource with the Community Research Institute and Johnson Center in their kind of neighborhood to be able to do this. So it is pricey, but it's something that has been worthwhile.
Cool. Thank you. Justin asks, could you explain how you are currently approaching the suppression issues your dashboard faces? I'm hitting a similar barrier in our data work where we cannot disaggregate data below the county level.
Yeah. Let me just say a couple of things and then pitch it over to Jody, because I think she has a couple of things to say as well. We don't have a perfect solution to this. We are, from a state level, we're kind of exploring a relationship with the Michigan Department of Education that would give CRI some access to some individualized data, because they, CRI is kind of FERPA and HIPAA compliant, and they follow all these rules. So then they would then suppress the individualized data as opposed to us getting aggregates. And that would be a huge kind of home run for us, and we're hopeful of that. What we've sort of built into the system, so you saw it a little bit with that the ability to show ranges. It's not the perfect solution, but we know for some of our populations, I think you saw it in that one when I did the multiple geographies. the number of Asian students who were proficient in third grade reading had a range to it. Now we know 100%. We know absolutely that the number falls within that range. We just don't know what it is because we're getting suppressed data that is suppressing less than 10 students. And so when you have multiple, when you add together multiple suppressed data sets or items, you're getting a range, right? And that range could be quite large, as you saw with that. So it's not a perfect solution. We have that. We have that now, and we're sort of working towards another area. Did you want to say anything, or did I?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to it is, as Mark said, we went with what's available publicly first.
Yeah.
The next step would be to try and get data directly from the Michigan Department of Education that's individual level, but still de-identified, right? So that helps us because it gets rid of the suppression issues, and we can set up a data sharing agreement where we agree to suppress data at a certain level. So even when we're aggregating geographies, then we could do that without suppressing, where we would have to suppress for one geography at a time. The kind of data wonk ideal here would be to get individually identifiable data so that you could link it across indicators. Because eventually the question is going to be asked, how does kindergarten readiness relate to third grade reading? And we can't tell you that because we don't know which scores are the same for which kid. And then the other thing that Mark mentioned earlier, as far as future directions, or Neil may have mentioned this, and mapping out where people live versus the institutions they come from, we can't do that with aggregate data. Mm-hmm. So with individual level de-identified data, if they'll give us some geography, so even if it's zip code, block group ID would be even better, then we could do more of that. But the more disaggregated we can get from the actual data source, the better. You can always aggregate up when you're doing analysis. You can't always disaggregate if you're given aggregate data.
Michael, are you still there?
All right, just went back onto mute.
Oh, okay.
There was just a quick question that Joe had, clarifying question. When you guys were talking about the budget, did you say 400,000 or 100,000?
100,000.
Okay.
One followed by 5 zeros.
And we're in our third year.
We're in their third year, and that's that's per year.
Cool. Thank you. And then Patricia just said, I think this may have just been touched on, but just to make sure we're hitting it, Patricia said, with so many partner school districts and community-based organizations, can you share any challenges or lessons learned about structuring, managing data sharing agreements with those partners?
Yeah, that's a great, I mean, that's like one of the $1 million questions, I think. And what I would say with that is, we have a lot of schools and organizations, and my advice and where we've seen success is we have gone where the energy is. So when one of the statements that I often make in-house is that when you have leaders who see the benefit in sharing data and want to share data, they will share data. When they don't, they'll throw up, FERPA and blocks in place. And what we have found a kind of a core group. It's not huge, but a core group within our community that really want to, see the need for this. They see the need for some outside help for their school district, or, what they're doing is beyond what, they need help from from the outside community, not just their organization. And they see, so we have a superintendent who has been really great about sharing data and structuring good sharing agreements with us. We have some partners with juvenile justice. We have libraries that have been working with us, and we're sort of trying to build a synergy around that. And that's just a part of building the culture around data sharing, and some of the work a little bit that we're doing with the Community Data Trust.
But the heavy lifting gets done at CRI.
Yeah, so that's part of the CRI contract as well. Included in that $100,000 a year is to help negotiate, and then manage all of those data sharing agreements.
Great. Awesome. Thank you all to our panelists, and thank you all to the folks who joined us. It looks like we do not have any more questions, but if any do arise, please feel free to go onto the portal where I'll be making this recording and the slide deck available. And you can also, reach myself, Mark, and the members of his team with their email addresses on the portal. So just be on the lookout for that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, and sorry for all the West Michigan coughing.
Yeah.